Hey, this is Alice Remley. I'm the electrics manager here at the Hopebox Theater. I'm going to be making an introductory video for our new soundboard. If you're unfamiliar with this board, this is your main reference guide. So when you first get in, there's going to be a power switch on the back of the console right next to the power cord here. Go ahead and push that in. Once you've powered on the board, you can then power on the microphone receivers down here. There's a red switch here at the bottom. They'll all boot up. And once you have your receivers and board on, you can go ahead and turn on the amplifiers. It's this very top switch here. Once you get everything loaded in, I recommend first thing you do is select the scene you want to be in. So go up here to the top left. Hit scenes, and you'll be able to see a couple options here. We're going to be using Peter Pan for this one. You can go ahead and tap on the scene you want and hit go underneath recall. This will recall whatever scene you've assigned. So we're now in our Peter Pan show file. Now, when you're first setting up your microphones, I recommend keeping things on layer A. That way you have a one-to-one view of all of your microphones. So we're going to start there. So we currently have a lot of settings from our previous show here. It's up to you if you want to reset those or build off of the previous show. I recommend building off the previous show, as oftentimes issues come and go, and oftentimes there's fixes within the show files for those issues, and it'll help you with a lot of issues going forward if you're building off the last working file. So from starting at the board, you have a couple buttons here. You have your mute, your select, and your PFAL. If you're familiar with our old system, this was the same as the solo button. It just attaches the channel to this meter here so you can watch what its levels are at. You want to use select when you're first setting all of your levels on the microphone. You can either do that through these knobs here. You have your preamp. This is the same as your gain. Your high pass filter, you want to make sure you have that turned on with this button here. Your gate. For vocals, I recommend leaving that off. And your compressor. Below that, you have your EQ, you have your low frequencies, your mid frequencies, your high mids, and your high frequencies, and you can adjust the width, the frequency, and the gain. I'll show you a better look at those when we get into the controls here. But once again, just push the button to turn that on or off. Once you've selected your channel and you're ready to set it, make sure you hit processing here right below the screen, and that'll take you here, and you can see all of the options you have. Starting out with your preamp, I only recommend having to touch the gain here. Everything else doesn't really matter unless you're doing some advanced stuff. You can either adjust it through this knob here. You can see that increases and decreases the gain, or you can use the preamp knob over here, and that will do exactly the same. Once you set your basic gain, you can move on to your EQ or your compressor, depending on what you prefer. And once again, all of these knobs here will actively affect everything here. So if I were to adjust that high pass filter, you can see that it will move along with the screen, and you can get a pretty good idea of what you're doing here. Beyond that, you have your compressor here. Again, power on and off. This knob only affects the threshold, but if you're building off of a previous show file, that's probably all you'll need to adjust. So you can determine that based off of the levels the actor gives you during the mic check. Another important note for microphones is you'll oftentimes want to name them based off of what show you're doing. To do that, you just hit this top left button here, and you can change both the name, so we'll say mic 1, hit apply, and you can also change the channel that it appears on your console, or sorry, the color. So maybe I want that to be blue, and now it's blue. And that's your basic mic setting. Once you have all your mics set, I don't recommend staying in layer A, as it kind of gets a little confusing trying to find everything here. Layer D has been customized ideally for shows. So you have your mics 1 through 18 here, you have your music here on a fader, and you have a couple DCAs here. We'll talk about that in a sec. Music is super simple. It's assigned to a fader with this black cable here. That'll normally be plugged into the Mac over there running QLab, so you can adjust the levels from the console or from the computer based on your tech preferences. Now for these DCAs, basically these act as channel groups. So on DCA 1, you can see for this show file, we've combined all of the mics into this DCA. That way, if I wanted a master fader for all of my microphones, but not my music, that's right here. But we have a couple other options, are just free range for whatever you want to do. All you have to do to change those is hit select, processing, and just make sure the microphones that you want to change are highlighted in green. Something that's worth noting is you want to keep these at the 0 mark, otherwise you may accidentally mute out mics that you don't want to have muted out. You'll notice if you were to hit the mute buttons on here, all the channels it affects will start flashing. That's a good reminder of if they're off. But if you adjust the fader all the way to the bottom, it won't give you that warning. So make sure you're aware of what your DCAs are doing as you're running your show. As for your microphones, it depends on your personal preference if you want to use the mute button here to mute microphones, or if you want to adjust your faders here. Some people prefer to set their faders ahead of time and just mute and unmute based on lines in the show. Others prefer to live and fade mics in as the actors speak. Coming to the right-hand side of the console, you have your outputs here. The only one you should need to worry about is your main left-right right here. This goes to the main mix. On the right-hand side of the board here, you have all of your output processing. You can ignore these two channels. The main left-right is going to be the main speakers out in the house. But you have a couple other options, such as mix 1. This is your stage monitor mix. I always recommend only having music in this mix. But if you need to turn it up, you can turn it up through this button right here, and you can turn up your stage monitors. On mix 2, you have your backstage mix. All of these will follow the microphones that you set live during the show. It's up to you to decide how loud or quiet the master of that mix is. On mix 3 is the area directly below the booth. I would recommend not touching that, as it's very difficult to judge what that sounds like as you don't have a clear earshot. And of course, your main left-right, which is your house stereo mix, where you're going to be spending all of your time during a run. One of the other cool features on this console is that it features a microphone so that you can talk out into the house when you're addressing actors during a mic check. So if you'd like to use that, there's this button labeled talk right below your meter here. Go ahead and push that, it'll toggle, and that will activate that microphone. As long as that button is green, this mic is hot and you can address the actors. The last detail is at the end of any show when you want to save your file, all you have to do is hit the scene button again, make sure you're in the scene you want to. Like I said earlier, we are using the Peter Pan show file, so we're exactly where we want to be. And modify, hit overwrite, and that will save all of your current progress to the show file so that next time when you're ready, you can go ahead and hit recall and come back to where you left off. If you have any issues or need help troubleshooting, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll help troubleshoot with you. But other than that, I hope you have a great run and break a leg.